Hey everybody, he's Jason. I'm Chucky. This is Teaser, another episode of Bookends. We're going to start with our little friend here, Teaser. The dogs were definitely barking this past weekend. I think the early games, you had 5 of the 8 underdogs went outright. 6 of 8 covered. You had big upsets. The Bengals over the Titans, the Lions over the Packers, the Vikings over the Packers. Just huge upsets. And then Monday night, kind of that controversial finish with the Giants and Bucks, but also a good game for our side of the counter. Just one of those weeks where dogs were just coming in at a crazy pace. But those 2 games were huge upsets. Knocked down money lines, teasers, parlays, and good games for our side of the counter.
Yeah, and we saw some great finishes. We saw the Chargers do what the Chargers have been doing here lately.
Unbelievable.
The Broncos with a big comeback, and the games were exciting. The college slate was absolutely fantastic. So another really good week of football. We got through some of the COVID messes of last week, and we'll embark on this week's COVID messes. But another big set of games up on the board for people to take their shots.
Yep, I think even the Rams game last week, Rams-Dolphins game, I mean, Tua has his debut. He throws for, I think, around 100 yards, yet they kill the Rams because of all the turnovers. So, but anyway, it was kind of an exciting week, as you mentioned. A lot of upsets last week, but we're going to dive into this week. First of all, it's, I think, yay sportsbooks. I mean, the MAC and the PAC are back. So MAC action and Pac-12 action both are pretty cool, and it's great to have those back. We're going to start with a game in the Pac-12. It's ASU and USC. Uncharacteristic early start time, 9 a.m. on Saturday morning, but it's a great way to kick off college football on Saturday.
Yeah, great to get the Pac-12 back. Obviously, the 9 o'clock start time is unusual, but I'm going to take a step back and we'll address that MAC, the MACtion. And one of the reasons that I really want to highlight the fact that they're back is that they're back and they're going to be playing on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights. So we get 3 games next Tuesday, 3 games on Wednesday, and then the week after that we get 3 games on Tuesday and 3 games on Wednesday. So the MAC's going to take center stage. Very, very important for us and very helpful for us, as it's going to fill kind of that midweek void with the absence of other sports. And we had some fun with the MAC salami. We put up the prop on the total amount of points that'll be scored in the MAC on Wednesday. I think we had it up 352.5. Went as high as 355.5, and there were 367 points scored in the 6 games last night. So very high scoring conference. We should have some
no
fun
surprise,
with that.
right?
Yeah, and so Tuesday and Wednesday we'll do the same thing. We'll have a MAC salami up for the total amount of points scored in those 6 games combined between Tuesday and Wednesday. So look for that fun and have some fun betting the MAC on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, it's always great.
But going back, Pac-12, Arizona State versus USC. Arizona State has got to find a way to overcome the losses of Brandon Ayuk and Eno Benjamin, 2 of their stars that have gone to have some success in the NFL. Herm Edwards, I know one of your favorite guys. Go ahead, you can say your Herm Edwards line.
We played to win the game, so it is one of my favorite lines.
He's bringing NFL coaching talent back down to Arizona State as Marvin Lewis now takes over as his defensive coordinator. So they've got a lot of new introductions that they're doing down there. They're going to take on this USC team that's got some stars in the making. Helton was really on the cusp of being let go under the hot seat of USC last year. They bring him back. He's got Slovis as his quarterback after JT Daniels gets hurt early in the season. Slovis takes over, really does a good job leading that offense. They scored some points. They really struggled on the defensive side of the football last year. They made a change. They've got a new defensive coordinator, Amon St. Brown, a good receiver that's there. So USC is going to continue to score points, and it's kind of going to be, what are we going to see out of this Arizona State team? But definitely from a coaching standpoint, they've got 2 great guys there, and let's see if they can be competitive.
Right. I think it's great, too, that it kicks off at 9 a.m.
Oh,
There's
awesome.
a number of
Pac-12
games throughout the course of the day, but 9 a.m. is just uncharacteristic for a Pac-12 game, but it's pretty cool. I'm going to jump over to the Big Ten. Number 13, Indiana, versus number 23, Michigan. First time that Indiana's 2-0 since 1991. They've lost 24 straight games to the Wolverines. It's been 33 years since they beat them. Yet they're 2-0 right now. I think Michigan and Harbaugh, they're in some big trouble. They were over a 3-touchdown favorite last week against Michigan State at home. They get beat outright in that game. There's a lot of rumblings that Jim Harbaugh might be returning to the NFL next year. If I'm the Jets right now, I've got them on speed dial. If you decide to make a coaching change and you're going to have the number 1 pick in the draft and Trevor Lawrence is sitting out there and he's thinking about should I stay or should I go, maybe you make that move and it's Jim Harbaugh returning to the NFL. But Indiana's got a tough schedule coming up. They still have Ohio State and Michigan State, very, very tough early on, but they did knock off Penn State already, which they hadn't done for years. They're 2-0. It's a young team. They're playing really, really well right now. They're a small home dog to Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana's able to pull the upset here and actually have beaten Penn State and Michigan early in this season.
Well, the only hope is that maybe Michigan's still worried about counting their votes with the Pennsylvania and Nevada. Maybe they're distracted in Michigan and worried about that rather than playing football.
They could be. They could be. Now we're going to jump over to the largest cocktail party, and it's Georgia and Florida, which I know you want to touch.
Yeah, I don't know if we can call it the largest outdoor cocktail party this year. Obviously, with the COVID, there'll be about 17,000 fans in Jacksonville to see Georgia take on Florida. This game's got all kinds of injuries and question marks surrounding it. Obviously, Florida has been fantastic on the offensive side of the football. Kyle Trask is in the Heisman Trophy race. They've got a tight end, Kyle Pitts, who's going to be probably in the top 5 players selected in the NFL draft. They've had no problems on offense. They've had some struggles on the defensive side of the football, and they're not going to get any help from that standpoint as they lose 2 of their defensive linemen to suspensions in the first half of this game after the brawl that they had at halftime with Missouri last week. And Florida was one of those teams that was really affected by COVID, missed a lot of practice time and stuff like that. So we'll see what they can kind of bring to the field against this Georgia team that's really been really, really stout on defense. The defense has been absolutely amazing, beating Kentucky last week 14-3. Really, Kentucky didn't look like they had any chance to score a touchdown, but they lost some key guys to injury in that game. Again, defensive lineman and a linebacker that went out in that first half. And then probably the biggest news of the week, Richard LeCounte, their safety, one of their best defensive guys, got hurt in a dirt bike accident, is going to miss the game.
Right.
So again, injuries on both sides of the ball. Obviously, these teams, this is a huge battle. It's number 8 versus number 5 in the country. Not at the neutral site in Jacksonville, so obviously not playing in Florida, not playing in Georgia. Jacksonville's right on the border of Georgia and Florida, so that's why it'll be a great game from that standpoint of visitation. That's why they call it the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. But again, no fans, or 17,000 fans in the stadium. So this is really going to be
a lot, though. When you think about what a lot of these venues have had since football came back, that's one of the largest crowds that I've heard so far. Is that you're getting close to 20,000 for that game?
Yeah, and this is really an offensive versus defense. I mean, Florida's offense and Georgia's about defense, and so we'll see which one cracks.
Right. Should be a really good game. I'm going to look at, I think, the marquee college football game of the week, and that's Clemson, undefeated number 1 Clemson at number 5 undefeated Notre Dame. I mean, it's a phenomenal matchup. I mean, you've got 2 top 5 programs. Unfortunately, no Trevor Lawrence. We talked about it, the way it kind of worked out this year with Notre Dame and the ACC. They get to play Clemson in this game. Notre Dame comes into the game with the number 1 ranked defense in college football. They're only giving up 10.3 points per game. That defense has been stout. Can they get over the hump, though, and win a game like this against Clemson? We know that Big Cinco has had some good games. He had to come from behind a little bit against BC since he's been instituted as a starting quarterback. But this is a major test, I think, to see how he performs against that defense in Notre Dame. And does Notre Dame have enough offensively to compete with Clemson, I think, is the big question.
Well, we saw these guys match up 2 years ago in 2018. I think it was the Cotton Bowl.
Wasn't a good outcome.
And Clemson destroyed them. I think it was 30-3. And I think Brian Kelly after that game said, Notre Dame just needs to find a way to get back to that top tier of college football, and
they are defensively, I think.
Yeah,
it's the other side of the ball
that
just can they do enough to compete with Clemson's offense?
He's underselling this game, Brian Kelly, that is, for Notre Dame, and the fact that regardless if they win this game or lose this game, they're still probably going to have to play Clemson again in the ACC championship, and it's the gift of the COVID season again that we get to see Notre Dame kind of moved into the ACC versus being an independent. Neither of us wanted to try and take a shot at pronouncing the
Big Cinco's name.
Yeah, Big Cinco, DJ, whatever that last name may be. He played well against Boston College last week. Obviously, Travis Etienne is probably the key to the offense this week. Hopefully not having to lean too much on Big Cinco. Hopefully they can hand the ball off to Etienne or get him out of the backfield. But that Notre Dame defense, I'm sure, is going to key up on him and force the young quarterback to beat them. And like you said, this game is going to come down to whether Notre Dame can score on that Clemson defense.
And a lot of pressure, though, on a young quarterback for Clemson. I think you look at this point spread, and they're a 6-point favorite. If it was Trevor Lawrence in this game, what would the number be? It would be over 10. I mean, I think there's that much of a drop-off that they would definitely be, double-digit favorites in this game. And you think about how well Notre Dame's defense is, but against Trevor Lawrence, there's just no way. I don't think you could have made him less than 10 points.
Yeah, but you look at and you talk about Trevor Lawrence and we talk about Tua Tagovailoa, and when you talk about programs like Alabama and Clemson, they don't.
It's next man up.
It's next man up. We're watching Mac Jones lead the Heisman Trophy race the year after Tua leaves. So they have players in place, and that's why they're always in that national championship hunt, and that's why they have all the offensive stars and the defensive stars want to go there because they always have the best set of guys willing to play. And I think there's no doubt that this young man is ready to play. He would be a starter on any other team in college football, and he's going to get to put on
just
a show.
A little bit different on the road here. The pressure that comes with playing a team that has the number one defense. Anxious to watch this game. I think it's a great game, so it'll be fun. We're going to go back to the Pac-12 now. I know that we've had fun talking about the USC-Arizona State game, and now we're sticking out west with UCLA playing Colorado in this game. I think both teams had disappointing seasons last year, just didn't achieve what everyone had thought. I think UCLA comes off a 3 or 4 game win, and same thing with Colorado here. So it's kind of a game for these two teams to get off on the right foot.
Yeah, and UCLA, from a personal standpoint, love the local angle here. Dorian Thompson-Robinson played his youth football here, played his high school football at Bishop Gorman, was an outstanding athlete here in the state of Nevada. So cheering for him to have a lot of success at UCLA and hopefully a level beyond. And he's had to jump into that Brian Kelly system. He kind of got thrown into the fire as a young quarterback when the Michigan transfer got hurt there, kind of got thrown in the mix. This will be his second full season as the quarterback for Brian Kelly. A lot of the pieces of the puzzle are around the talent-wise for him at UCLA. They beat Colorado last year pretty handily. One of their big problems last year was really the turnovers, specifically on Dorian's part, a lot of interceptions and fumbles. But I think that he's really matured. I think that this could be a very, very good season for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's actually listed on our Heisman Trophy list. And on the other side, Colorado, they're going to their third coach in 3 years. So in a COVID-shortened season with a rookie coach kind of jumping in there, actually he used to coach UCLA back in the 80s. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but Tucker leaves to go to Michigan State, and so they got a new person there with some new personnel. So it'll be interesting to see what the Buffaloes throw out in the field. But I think UCLA is a dangerous team. I think they're going to be able to score a lot of points. And again, looking forward to seeing what DTR can do on the field.
Yeah, I think for DTR last year he got benched. He wasn't playing as much as we thought he would be. So I think it is a good game as well. I'm going to look at UNLV in our own backyard. They had the game last week against Reno. Offensively, they hung for a while. Defensively, they were just exposed. I mean, they're 0-2 right now. Guys were running open, the entire game. It was just unbelievable how they couldn't make those adjustments at halftime. They come into this game 0-2. Fresno's 1-1. Game opened up 13. It's been steadily coming down. So some action on UNLV in this game. I like that young offense, but I think you look at their head coach, who's a defensive coach, and I think you have to make some adjustments. I mean, if they're going to be recruiting, and that's the key, I think, is get that defense better because they were exposed against Nevada last week.
Well, you talk about, again, going back to Colorado and a coach making their first year with the program, and Royal's in the same spot. These are not the kids that he's recruited.
Right.
So he's having to deal with, again, the COVID-shortened practice season. And, make no mistake, the two teams that they've played, San Diego State and Nevada, they're not bad football teams. Those are
they're not, right.
San Diego State's going to be at the top of the conference, and Nevada can flat out score some points. So they've faced two pretty good offenses, and they've just got to continue to get better and better each week.
Yep. So we kind of looked at some of the big college games this week that we touched on. We're going to jump over to pro football right now. I know one of the games we thought was intriguing was the Lions and Vikings. Just the way that the Lions have started to get a little bit healthier now and get DeAndre Swift in the mix. Vikings come off that big upset of the Packers last week, and unfortunately there's a COVID issue with Matt Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, I had this game circled just because the Vikings have really dominated the Lions over the last several matchups, and after their win against Green Bay, maybe they're turning the corner there. Obviously, Dalvin Cook got off to an amazing start. They didn't have to lean too much on Kirk Cousins.
They're still in last place in the NFC North
to win that game. Well, that's the other thing when you talk about Lions and Vikings, and it's not the first place matchup. Every game on the board, whether it's a college game or the pro game, is a chance for the bettors to pick a winner, pick a side, pick a total, and cash a ticket. So I think that don't leave anything on any stone unturned when you're looking at these matchups to see if you can find a winner. But this game is got it's a mess all over the place. Galladay's hurt. You said Stafford popped positive for COVID. They're optimistic that with the timeline that they're under, if he can have a negative test, that he'll be able to play Sunday, but most likely not going to get that information until Sunday morning.
Right.
So this game's going to be pretty much down all week and unavailable for betting until Sunday morning. But I think that this is a really good spot for the Vikings to potentially look to turn their season around. Detroit really didn't look good last week against the Colts. Had a chance with a home game to potentially pull a small upset over the Colts, and really got dominated by the Colts without Jonathan Taylor, and just watched Hines and Wilkins have a field day, and Rivers was efficient. But like I said, I thought this was a good spot for the Vikings, but now with the COVID issues, the game kind of loses a little bit of luster.
Yeah, I mean, especially without Galladay, I think that's such a big loss for Detroit and Stafford, not knowing how much practice time he can get in between now and game time. But I'm going to look at a big game too in the AFC. The 5-2 Ravens against the 5-2 Colts. Colts have played better of late. They're now 5-2. They sit on top of that division with the Titans. Rivers is still a big question mark. I mean, he has some good games. He still makes some of those costly turnovers. And they're a home dog. A couple-point home dog to the Ravens this week. I think you look at the Ravens, and Lamar Jackson's still Lamar Jackson, but he's actually a better fantasy quarterback than he is in the NFL right now. In the big games against the Chiefs and Steelers this year, he had multiple turnovers in big games. In both games, he was able to bounce back the game after the Chief game and play really well. But to me, there's still some question marks out there. When you look at that team right now, defensively they're stout. They can run the ball. He's just not getting the ball downfield. You look at Marquise Hollywood Brown. He has 2 touchdowns. Both were under 10-yard touchdowns. Last year he had some long touchdowns. It doesn't matter if it's Ingram or Dobbins or Gus the Bus Edwards. They've got those running backs. They've got Mark Andrews. But I think you need more out of Lamar Jackson. If they're going to win a playoff game and potentially be playing on that first Sunday in February, I think he has to become more of a quarterback. Last year I thought he was. He was a better pocket passer. This year he's really had some struggles. That game against the Steelers last week, Jay, he made so many ill-advised throws, falling backwards, just flinging it up. I know he turned the ball over multiple times. He could have had 2 or 3 more interceptions that just were dropped or just the way the play was. So I think it's a big game for them. They're on the road here. They're a small favorite, but it's a good Colt team that plays solid D. They've got a great offensive line and a multitude of running backs that they might be able to neutralize the clock and the ball a little bit against the Ravens.
Yeah, I thought last week the Ravens was a great spot against the Steelers. The fact that they were coming off their bye week, Steelers were coming off the big win over the Titans at the last second with the missed field goal, and the Ravens just kind of missed, and you brought up the turnovers to Lamar Jackson, but at the end of the day, they still were, at the 17-yard line with a chance to go in there and win that game. We'd be talking about the Steelers' first loss.
But that's the key, I think, when you look at the Ravens, they're not able to win those big games at the end in the playoffs so far with Lamar Jackson. They couldn't beat the Chiefs on prime time, and then the Steelers were able to neutralize that running game somewhat, and I think that puts more pressure on Lamar Jackson, and I think if you get into the postseason and you're playing against good defensive teams, he's going to have to be able to win with his arm at some point. Just wondering if he can do that right now.
Yeah, and I don't, again, this matchup with the Colts, I think the news talk about neutralizing the running game. I think the Ravens actually ran for 283 yards on the ground. So it was very, unusual to see a team with that type of rushing yardage
against the Steelers,
lose a football game. So but the Colts, they dominated the Lions. They really had a big game against the Lions. They were able to do it on the ground. This is one of those. This is a big matchup. You talked about it, 5-2 versus 5-2. Obviously, with the playoff format, both of these teams are looking really, really well. But this is one of those games where it's kind of, you feel like the Ravens, back-to-back losses here to the Steelers and Colts could be devastating just to their psyche. So that this game is going to be huge from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I think Phillip Rivers needs to step up.
One of the things when you talk about that Steelers team, and I go back to the 1980s and stuff like that. One of my things my dad always talked about was those big bad defensive teams that the Steelers had, or the Ray Lewis type Ravens, that when a team had to play those defensive teams that really beat you up, you struggled the next week.
Right.
And so I went back and looked. Teams that have played the Steelers are 1-6 straight up the week after playing the Steelers.
Great stat.
Now the Steelers, they arguably have played some pretty bad teams, but you don't have to go very far back to see that they played the Titans, and the Titans then went and lost to the Bengals who hadn't been very good. So, playing that Steelers team doesn't bode well for you the next week, and that's the situation the Ravens
And this
are in.
number has come down a little bit from 2.5 to 2, so we've seen a little bit.
Well,
of
there's
money
some COVID issues
on the
too. We've
Colts,
got
too.
Humphreys
Right.
and some other guys on the Ravens that are addressing early week, expected probably to play, but some early week missed practice and stuff like that.
I'm going to jump into an interconference game and let you talk about. I think it's one of the best games of the weekend. You've got the Seattle Seahawks traveling to Buffalo. The Seahawks 6-1. The Bills are 6-2. This is a great matchup between these two teams. Both are somewhat exposed defensively. I think you look at Seattle. They had given up the most points through 6 weeks of any team in the history of the NFL. Adams has been banged up. They lost Bruce Irvin. It's a Buffalo team that has finally exercised those demons. They beat the Patriots last week, so they sit in a great spot right now. The Dolphins are behind them at 4-3, but their young quarterback Josh Allen is going through a little bit of struggles right now. He's gone 2 straight games without a touchdown pass. They're a small home dog to Seattle on Sunday.
Yeah, well, I'll start with Seattle. They've probably been, I think, outside of that cover.
And the overs.
Yeah, the overs been big in their games, but they've done some damage to the books from that standpoint. And a lot of people have been cashing their Seahawks tickets. You don't know which guy is going to beat you, but Lockett or Metcalf alongside Wilson, they've just been absolutely amazing. Now you throw in the mix of all those running backs that they've been able to plug in, whether it's Carson or Hyde, or last week we get to see get introduced to DJ Dallas, who's able to score points. So Seattle's been able to light up that scoreboard. It's just a matter of can that defense hold on long enough and keep the other team off the board at the key end of the game moments or something like that. And that's kind of where you brought it up, that Buffalo has really kind of struggled. They kicked 6 field goals against the Jets. We're unable to score a touchdown against the Jets.
And their defense hasn't been nearly as dominant as it was
at the
last
beginning
year.
of the year, I thought that defense was going to be great. They've been really struggling to stop the run. That's been the biggest key for their defense. But again, the offense, Josh Allen was dynamic in those first several games, again, against some lesser talent, but over the last 2 weeks to really struggle against the Jets. And then they got the win against the Patriots, but again, Cam Newton.
Well, the Patriots were down there at the end of the game where they could have won as well, right?
So, the Buffalo has not been playing particularly good football. But again, this is a tough spot where you see a West Coast team having to go, to the East Coast. Buffalo is never an easy place to play. I think the Bills will be kind of jacked up for this game. Surprised this game has kind of been under 3 or at the 3. I think it'll
get
by
there,
the end of the week, it's going to be 3 or 3 higher with the public money. But this is going to be a key morning game.
Yeah, I think you look at Buffalo, and I love Zach Moss and Singletary. You've got 2 young backs right now. If it's John Smokey Brown, you added Diggs and Beasley.
John Brown has not been healthy.
He's been hurt,
He really hasn't been a part of that offense. Everything has been flowing.
And he's the guy that
Diggs.
takes the top off. So, he can kind of stretch that field open, a lot of things up for Beasley and Diggs. I think a few of the games that he was healthy were those games that Josh Allen really produced early in the season.
Yeah, he was a guy that Josh Allen wants to go to.
Right, absolutely.
Diggs has really transformed that offense and given him that other playmaker. But if John Brown can be healthy and Allen can find him, then this could be a game that they could stay in.
It's not an interconference game, but I'm going to stick in the AFC West. It's the Las Vegas Raiders against the LA Chargers, and I know you touched on it earlier. I mean, the Chargers just find a way to lose games. I mean, it's hard to believe that they have now lost 4 straight games where they led by at least 16 points. That's almost that's unbelievable. I mean, how does that happen in that league? I mean, if you look over the last couple of years, every game it seems like they're giving up a lead late, losing by 1 score, and you have to wonder, what's going on with that team. I mean, they just cannot seem to get over the hump. I love Justin Herbert. I think he's played great. He's a very talented young quarterback, and I think you look at these two teams now. It's strange with the Raiders, but there was a stretch of 5 games there when they had the Saints and the Bucks and the Patriots and the Bills that we needed the Raiders. This is going to be the 3rd straight time that they've had a road game. Early in the season, they played at Carolina. They bet the heck out of the Raiders. Last week, they had a road game. They bet the heck out of the Raiders. This week against LA, they're betting the heck out of the Raiders. This number is dropping. I think it goes to pick or even the Raiders the favorite. I think the one key here you look at is both teams can score. The Raiders are 5-1-1 overs this year. The Chargers have gone over 4 straight games. The Chargers' identity, maybe it's where they play at home over the last 2+ years, 3 different stadiums. They're 5-13 against the number at home. So they really don't have that identity. Again, I think this number goes off where the Raiders are the favorite. And the Raiders then would, if they win, they would be 5-3. they get into a much easier stretch. They would have I think after this game they have the Broncos coming up. They do have a game against the Chiefs, which they host here in Vegas. Then they have the Jets and the Falcons. So it's a Raider team at 4-3, has the potential to be 5-3. For me, I think they're one of the biggest surprises in the league right now, just because of that tough early season schedule they had.
Well, and they got kind of the gift of going into Cleveland and playing in the kind of the winter storm that was there last Sunday.
But is that a gift? I mean, Cleveland's used to it.
No,
the Raiders aren't.
It was
right.
a gift because, I mean, the Cleveland had been throwing the ball all over the place and scoring points, and that was really what the Raiders weren't able to stop was those passing games. So that kind of neutralized that Cleveland offense, who wants to run the ball. They're an exceptional running team, but when you can't throw the ball because it's the winter storm, and the Raiders were able to focus on stopping that run, they held them without the touchdown, and really the Raiders had trouble moving the ball as well in the game, and kind of were able to get out of Dodge with the wind, and now I'll be able to go to California and play in much better weather. Right. But again, this is going to be a different team than what they were playing last week, with the fact that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Hunter Henry, and they're playing some very
they're
very
young
good
backs
offense.
And Jackson and Kelly. Herbert's
Chargers
been phenomenal.
Yep. Herbert's thrown a couple of key picks, and that's really been.
He's still a rookie.
Yeah, that's been his problem is the turnovers, and turnovers. That's how you win games in the NFL, by turning the ball over, and unfortunately for him, he's had some bad interceptions. But I think this is a big game. This is a big game for both these teams. The Chargers have really kind of push their way out of it from their record standpoint, but they're looking to develop this young kid and continue to get better. I think that Lynn is essentially coaching for his job. I think
I would agree.
A couple more losses.
It's just 2 years of the same trend.
Yeah, you can't blow games like that and have the win. So this is a kind of a must-win game from the Chargers from the standpoint of keeping his job and staying competitive. But they've got the tools to do it. They can absolutely play with the Raiders on the offensive side of the ball. This is going to come down to maybe who has the ball last, because both these teams look to go up and down the field on each other.
I think they can play with anybody. I mean, you named all the guys they have on offense, even without Eckler right now, who he might be back in a couple of weeks. Jackson and Kelly are young backs, but from a skill position set, they're really talented. And even on defense, when you look at guys like Bosa and Ingram, they've got some talent there. They've got key Derwin James. They've got key players there. So if it's not Lynn, whoever goes into that spot, I mean, they are inheriting a really good team. I think it's a much bigger game for the Chargers. I think the Raiders here, if they can pull a win off and be 5-3, I think it really sets them up well for the second half of the season.
Oh no,
they have the easiest schedule in the league the second half of the season.
Yeah, the Raiders are set up with their win last week. They're set up to be
in the win against the Chiefs, which nobody thought. So yeah, they're in really good shape.
This is a key game for them, and Gruden continues to get them better and better week after week. And we see that really, strangely enough, but it's the development of Derek Carr and the running game of Derek Carr. We thought it was just going to be Jacobs and then kind of throwing the ball around to these young receivers, but Carr has developed a little bit of let me scramble and run, and that bringing that extra dynamic.
With Ruggs and Waller, he's got some more guys. Yep. I know we're going to jump into another interconference game. This time it's Tua time. Tua and the Dolphins travel from Miami to Glendale to play the Cardinals. Cardinals have been just phenomenal this year. I mean, you look at how well Murray has played and Hop and Christian Kirk. They're really a fun team to watch. Came off that big upset a couple of weeks ago in primetime against Seattle. Tua's first road trip. Tua against Murray should be an exciting game to watch.
Yeah, and as much as it's Tua time, to me, this game is about Kyler Murray time. I mean, we watched him have that incredible game against Seattle. I think he's kind of flipping the script on his career from the standpoint of being that marquee quarterback and a guy that people want to watch. They're going to be without Kenyon Drake most likely in the backfield there, so we'll watch Chase Edmonds take over in the backfield.
But Drake hasn't had a great year.
It's actually, I think, giving them more of a dynamic guy.
Agreed,
that's not going to be just a pound that ball more out of the backfield. But you had Murray's scrambling ability. He's been absolutely fantastic. You can't really sack him. He's got to kind of sack himself.
Right.
And then the
it's
weapons,
kind of Russell Wilson-esque a little bit.
The weapons that he has. The one thing that the Dolphins have going for them is a lot of confidence on the defensive side of the ball. They were able to travel out to San Francisco and get a bunch of turnovers in that game, win that game. Then they come back home against the Rams, and they turn the Rams over a bunch of time. Right. So they've had a lot of success against that NFC West, and so they hope to continue that success. Here, we're not going to see Gaskin available for the Dolphins, so it's most likely going to be Breida in the backfield.
Maybe Jordan Howard somewhat too.
Tua didn't have to do a whole lot from an offensive standpoint last week as the defense kind of dominated the Rams, and he was just kind of a game manager. So we did see him get to throw a touchdown pass to Parker, but they're going to have to move the ball through the air this week. The defense is, going to probably give up some points to this Cardinal team. So Tua's going to have to try and match wits.
And the Cardinal defense can be exposed. I mean, we've seen a lot of teams score points against them.
Coming from that left-hand side, we talk about the ability for quarterbacks to scramble, and we didn't see Tua do it last week out of the necessary to have to. So it'll be interesting to see this week if he's able to find those receivers and if we see Tua add that running game.
He did go up against one of the top 5 defenses last week, though, against the Rams.
Oh, yeah,
it can't
be any fun to see Aaron Donald across. I think that was his first sack. I think Aaron Donald was able to sack him for his first sack.
But, he does have the tools around him, though. I know Gaskin's not going to be there, as we talked about, but when you look at young receivers like Preston Williams and Parker and Gesicki at tight end, he's got some young players there, I think, to build around. So kind of interesting to see what that kind of maturation process is with Tua as he feels a little bit more comfortable. I know it's a road test, and usually you say, it's going to be tougher on the road, but without fans, I think maybe it's a little easier for him not having that same pressure on him.
You're talking about a kid that's a Heisman Trophy and played at Alabama. I don't know that going on the road in a fanless. I mean, he's played in
still the NFL.
Played in bigger games than this, and with
the NFL and defenses are bigger and faster.
Fans and so he's got the experience. I don't think from going to have the butterflies. I mean, maybe he had those butterflies with his first NFL experience. When he was taking knees and sat on the field. But I think that this is one of those. Hey, I get to go up against Kyler Murray, who he was at Oklahoma, and let me go show my stuff. So I don't think Tua is intimidated at all. It's just a matter of understanding that offense, and I'm sure things are a little bit faster in the NFL than they ever were.
Just a bit, right? Yeah.
But he got that taste last week. He got that taste against an incredible Ram defense, and so we'll see what he can do against the Cardinals.
Okay. I'm going to look at now the primetime game on Sunday night. I think it's a phenomenal game, guys. I mean, you talk about an NFC South battle between the Buccaneers and the Saints. It's a rematch from Week 1 when the Saints won that game 34-23. Brady was just kind of getting acclimated a little bit into that Buc system. I mean, for me right now, they're the best team in the NFC. Saints have won 4 straight. They've won by 3, 3, 3, and 6. They've been playing without Michael Thomas, without Emmanuel Sanders. They should have those guys back. And the other side, Antonio Brown makes his debut on primetime football with Tom Brady. Godwin should be back. You've got Evans, Gronk, Scotty Miller. This game's going to be fun to watch. As we talked about off air, these two guys keep going back and forth with the touchdown record. They're both still playing. If they say breaking news, and they're going back and forth. So it might be kind of a fun prop here. The numbers kind of bounced around a little bit. You saw some early action on Tampa. It started to come back a little bit on the Saints. But this is kind of a bigger game for, I think, Tampa, because the Saints have already beaten them once. They need to win this game. They have the identical records coming into this game, but if the Saints win here, in essence, they've got a 2-game lead against the Bucs because of tiebreakers. It's a great game on primetime football, just from a pride sake. When you talk about Brady and Breeze on primetime with the TD record, all the weapons around him, it looks like you're going to have all that receivers healthy for both sides. I'm looking forward to watching it. I think it's going to be a great game.
Yeah, this could be a preview of an NFC Championship.
It could
game.
be.
But yeah, we were laughing, watching that Bears Saints game last week, and they were after Breeze threw the touchdown pass on the crawl. It had breaking news.
It's great.
Breeze breaks Tom Brady's passing touchdowns record, and then we didn't see that back on Monday night. For Brady when he took the record back. But I thought it was strange that the Bucs prior to Monday night's game, they opened up a 4.5-point favorite over the Saints in this matchup. And then they went and played the Giants. Didn't look particularly well. Got kind of snuck out of New York with no defensive pass interference on the 2-point conversion. And the game on Tuesday reset at 5.5. They were 5.5-point favorites. Now, there was some issues potentially with the Saints, with Kamara not practicing, didn't practice early in the week, but he's been absolutely incredible.
I don't think anybody knew for sure, though, about Sanders and Michael Thomas, and that could have factored into it a little bit, too.
I mean, Kamara, with Sanders out, Thomas out, I think was on pace to catch like 135 balls, which would break McCaffrey's 118 receptions by a running back by a long mark. But again, those guys coming back, and you said it, we're going to see the debut of Antonio Brown. Now, Antonio Brown got his first practices in this week, so how much of a debut is he really going to have? Now, he's got some familiarity with Tom Brown.
Brady's going to want to score a touchdown on prime time if he can.
But he's got all those weapons. You talked about, Godwin, who has been out, and Evans hasn't really been healthy.
They haven't been healthy all year.
Gronk,
Scotty Miller.
Now we're introducing, guys like Tyler Johnson and Mickens and Scotty Miller. I mean, so he has so many different weapons to go to, let alone Ronald Jones has been absolutely fantastic out of that backfield, and Fournette, when he's in the game, is a dangerous weapon as well. So, I mean, the Bucs have all the pieces in place, and probably the best part of that entire team has nothing to do with their offense. It has to do with their defense.
Yep.
So, that's why they are that kind of NFC favorite. But this is a big matchup here, and, we talked about these old guys not looking very good in that week one of, kind of showing some rust, maybe showing some age. They've kind of
they look great.
Stuffed it in our faces over the
well, especially Brady. I think in Breeze's case, without Michael Thomas, that just really hurt. I mean, you're talking about the guy who led the league the last 2 years in receptions. Without him, it's just not that same offense. But I'm anxious to see this
We'll
game.
be cheering for an under.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too.
Public's going to bet
I think in Brady's case, though, and he showed that with New England. I mean, every single week, you could never really identify who that guy is going to be. If it was going to be Edelman, if it was Burkhead or White or Gronk, maybe outside of the year that he had Randy Moss, he really never had that guy. He's got so many guys to choose from, but he never falls in love with one. I mean, he's going to go to the guy who he has the best chance of completing that play to. So I think it's going to be fun to watch that game.
If you had to put a prop up right now, what would be Antonio Brown's over/under receptions?
Over/under receptions, I'm going to say 3.5.
All right.
Say 3.5.
Look for the Antonio Brown prop. We'll work on it. We'll work on it today and see what we can put up on it.
And we had another prop up. And for those of you guys who bet, would Jason say Juju